What could be done to radically curb this? Like if you were the king of the world, said, Ed, what are we going to do?
First off, legalizing some of the substances would probably help. That would help a lot. That's a pretty good question.
But even some substances that are legal, like fentanyl is essentially legal because you can get a prescription for it. But you're never going to have like fentanyl just over the counter. It's just too deadly.
Another thing that, I think about, and that's a very good question. I wish I could answer it.
I think everybody wishes they could answer it. But everyone just sort of like shrugs. And
so the cartels aren't just a drug-fueled business. They also have money that is in property and legitimized businesses. They work in human trafficking. Like if it used to be you can cross that border and go to the desert and cross it yourself, but now you have to pay a toll. Protection rackets on both sides of the border, sex trafficking, piracy, like you name it, they have hands in it, right?
So they just essentially took that drug money and just created a crime business.
They diversified. They've been diversified for a long time. Like there was recently three cartel members from Sinaloa in Malaysia released, out of all places. So just think about that. 2 Sinaloa cartel guys somewhere in Malaysia got caught somewhere, and now they've been released, and they got like a hero's welcome in Mexico.
They got a hero's welcome?
Oh yeah,
really?
Well, Sinaloa, again, Sinaloa is a pretty. That's I have this nickname for Mexico. I call it the upside down. Because everything's basically upside down now.
Right.
And these guys got. Funny thing is that the Mexican government was involved in their release, and then they sent them back, and heroes welcome. What were they doing all the way over there in that part of the world? I don't know. Diversifying.
Diversifying. So no one has a real plan. Here it goes. Malaysia pardons 3 Mexicans on death row. Oh, they were on death row. Damn.
You want to talk about a kick-ass corrido, like a folk song about you? Those guys are probably going to get an amazing folk song,
So there's a lot of romanticism connected to the cartel.
I mean, it's romanticism, it's religion. There's definitely some occultism involved in a lot of the higher-ups in these cartels.
I can remember when I found out about the narco music. These, what are those songs called?
Corridos, the folk songs. There's a lot of them, There's and all of them have a secret language in them sometimes, or they're all a history of something that happened, and you pay somebody to make one for you, or somebody makes it for you, and then if you do a good corrido song for somebody, and the rivals will send somebody to kill you,
Really?
So like even the musicians are on either side of the cartel kind of groupings as well, which is pretty weird, I know, but it's
wow. So if you're for the wrong cartel, like if you make a song, you kind of have to like go into hiding,
or not play in any places where the rival cartels territories are.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Will they come to your territory to come get you if you're
There's been a few high level singers, Mexican folk singers that got killed for messing with girlfriends of cartel members, or for singing the wrong song in the wrong place.
Wow.
So that's in the culture, and the religious occultism the cartels have as well. It's a pretty interesting thing. Things like Santa Muerte, the death cult that is kind of in different parts of Mexico. It's like think of a very dark Freemasonry type thing, right? Certain levels, you have people that are part of that cult, from the cops to the military to the cartels. It's kind of to prostitutes, to drug dealers. It's interesting how that kind of also has an influence on the way some people go into very risky businesses, like being cops or cartel guys, and how they wear or empower themselves by some of these occult iconographies, like a reaper, or there's the Trinity is the Jesus Malverde, which is it was a folk hero from turn of the century Sinaloa. basically a bandit that got caught and killed, and he turned into a saint. And now there's a giant church to him in Sinaloa with a bunch of money stuck to the walls and pictures of guys in the U.S. with like a F-150 truck or a Hummer. Like, thank you, Malberto. I'm living the dream now because of you.
Wow.
2 roadside altars with a statue of the Virgin Mary. And then you look behind her, and there's a reaper behind it because it's a hidden Santa Muerte shrine. And they do that so the military doesn't destroy them, because they have standing orders to destroy these things, which shouldn't be, but, it's kind of religious persecution, but they actually do that.
It's so different than the United States.
In a lot of ways it is.
I don't think we understand, like, all this stuff. Like, I think the average person has no idea about the songs, no idea about the culture of it all. They have no idea the depth and how deeply it's connected to society down there.
I mean, the death cult worship is, I think you could probably trace it back to the Aztec days, right? So there's definitely, when you see all these highly violent, bloody cartel executions and things like that, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think there's some sort of genetic memory from those times. It's not abnormal physically for some of these people to do that type of thing. Ripping somebody's heart next to a tree is like, there's videos of that stuff out there. I remember getting contacted by people that I knew on this side of the border in the U.S. That were very curious of why all these people from the Middle East were looking at all these cartel execution videos. And then a few years later, you had ISIS doing some high production execution videos that were inspired by the cartels.
Wow.
So
isn't it interesting that we don't think about that? We think about, oh my God, look at ISIS. They're cutting people's heads off. Well, they learned from Mexico, which is connected to us by land.
It's right down
you
there.
could fucking walk there.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to fly to Afghanistan. You could walk there. It's not in Libya. It's near La Jolla.
Yeah.
You go to La Jolla, you see these fucking multi-million-dollar estates with this gorgeous view, and everyone's driving Ferraris and Porsches. 20 minutes drive. You're in Tijuana.
Yeah, the most violent city on the planet right now.
That's so
right
crazy.
there. Yeah,
When I go to San Diego, that's one of the first things I think is what a juxtaposition. How crazy it is that this is the border to Mexico, and it's all military. San Diego is filled with fucking SEALs and Rangers and Marines and bases, and it's just all military down there. It's so military influenced, and it's right next to the most violent, dangerous city on planet Earth. More than Karachi, more than Pakistan.
We were insured by MetLife, and the MetLife agent said something along those lines, like, "You're better off going to Afghanistan or Iraq than working here, basically, numbers wise." And I was like, "Thank you for that." That felt like a good pat on the back.
But it seems like they're getting cartel on cartel crime.
Yeah.
Confused with regular person crime.
So, but that's how it always starts, It's usually starts off, and again, this goes back to everything cyclical down there, that snake eating its tail. So you get cartel on cartel crime, and then they finish each other off, and then they realize, well, now what do we do? So they started abducting people. Extortion.
Just for money.
Extortion comes into play, protection rackets. Cross us guy. Now they're very bold. Now they're at the party somewhere, and somebody looks at them funny, so they come back and they shoot up the whole party. I like your daughter. She's pretty hot. I'm going to steal her, and if you do something, I'll kill you, and you're never going to see your daughter again. That's how it starts. That's how it starts kind of growing.
Just bold, brazen, and cruel.
That's how you get it.
Sociopathic.
That's how you get to that point. And again, I experienced it back in 2006 era. And I saw it get into all the way to when the whole of the municipal police they basically, the army surrounded the municipal police office of the police at Tijuana, and they took all their guns. And a few of them were taking on a plane ride to Mexico City. And for a few weeks, there was no armed police in Tijuana, the municipal armed police. Imagine somebody disarming the whole all of the LAPD and just having the army in there instead.
Wow.
So you would see these events, and then things calming down. The only success story as far as a city coming back from the brink was Tijuana when all that like the raging drug war went down. Lieutenant Colonel Lizaola, the guy that I used to work with, he took numbers down. Like everybody down in Mexico, he got hired then on to go to Juarez to try and replicate his success. The only successes were there because he basically treated the problem as a counterinsurgency problem, not a policing problem. And he got 9 attempts on his life. The last one took the use of his legs, and he's currently running for mayor of Tijuana. Believe it or not, and he's in a wheelchair, but he's still. I wouldn't not want to mess with that guy.
Wow.
Yeah, myself and some members of my family are actually helping out with his campaign. But he got his one of his campaign offices got shut up recently.
So, is there any plans or is there any push to try to treat the entire problem as a counterinsurgency problem to replicate the success that they had in Tijuana?
No, it's that was a solution brought in by the right side of the political spectrum in Mexico. So it's a no-go right now because everything's to the left.
And this guy just got in office?
He has a few months in. So yeah, he just got into office.
So you got 5.5 more years of this dude.
We're in for a ride. That's all I can say.
Yeah, kindness doesn't seem to work when you're dealing with cartels. It seems like
no, you give them a hand and they'll take your feet. That's a Mexican saying. You know?
Man, for you to have been in that business and to sort of be connected to it but outside of it now, does it seem? I mean, it must be incredibly frustrating, but it also must feel futile, like you've wasted time almost because there's no progress is ever going to be made.
I have a weird experience that I had. Burned about 2 acres of pot somewhere in Baja, right? Towards the end of my career. And then things happened politically, a bunch of shakeups over the office. I got called in, and the director of the institution that I was in at that time was a shady character. And I decided to say, you know what? My mom had just passed away, and that kind of affected me a little bit, a lot of it, you know, and starting a family and stuff like that. And it said, you know what, this is not worth it. So I left, quit my job, handed everything in. And, people were suspicious about why I did it, like you probably found $1 million somewhere and you're running or shit like that, right? So I had to leave in a hurry, got a few threats.
Wow.
Luckily I had some great people on this side of the border, friendships that I developed for a long while, and they helped me out.
So you got a bunch of them?
I had HPV that goes away. Like I got
How's
married.
it go away?
HPV goes away.
No, you still have
it. Does.
You shoot a dirty load into someone, you can give it to them still.
Well, I believe I could have got bad info from my ENT, but I had.
Pretty sure you did.
Pretty
sure you keep that shit.
Can we look this up over here? I think HPV does go away if you stop having sexual intercourse with different people.
Oh, but I think it goes away for you, but I think it's still in your blood, and I think you can still give it to people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
well,
so don't be lying to people when you're shooting them.
Well, I only have sex with one person.
Jamie just put his finger up.
I knew it.
Just from the quick response.
In most cases, HPV goes away on its own. It does not cause any health problems. But when HPV does not go away, it causes health problems like genital warts and cancer. A healthcare provider can usually diagnose warts by looking at the genital area. What?
Yeah.
We got a fucking healthcare provider
summary.
can usually diagnose warts by looking at them.
Yeah, you can also do that. Comedians can also
You can
diagnose
see warts. You go, oh, that's a dick wart. Interesting.
Yeah, I had that. I went to Planned Parenthood, who do more than abortions. They'll take your warts right off. They put a little thing on there, and boom.
Here it says there are currently no cure for existing HPV infection, but for most people, it would be cleared by their own immune system, and there are treatments available for the symptoms it can cause. You can get the HPV vaccine. Oh, they have a vaccine now.
That's only for young people, though. We're too old.
Problems, apparently.
Causes
That's been
problems?
yeah.
What does it do?
I don't know
What
exactly.
did it do to you? Don't lie.
I did not get it.
You got it,
They
bro.
just started giving it out recently, I think, in the last, maybe less than 10 years.
But you got to get it, before you're 18.
What if it
or
makes you
something.
really horny?
That'd be ideal, right?
I don't know.
If it cures it.
I guess if it cures it.
But I had that. But so it does go away.
Did you ever hear about? There's a story about a drug called Re-Equip, and it was a medication for Parkinson's disease. And GlaxoSmithKline lost a judgment in court. I think it was in the tune of $600,000 American, because it turned a guy into a gay sex and gambling addict. All he wanted to do was hook up with guys online and gamble. And it can't, but listen, I know it sounds crazy, but they lost the lawsuit. Like a pharmaceutical drug company lost a lawsuit, and the jury awarded this guy more than $500,000.
How did he prove that all he wants to do is fuck guys?
That's a good question. But they did. They proved it to the point where this guy won money because he never had any problems like this before. Took his Parkinson's medication, and it just short-circuited his brain. He started sucking dick and rolling the dice.
I'm going to sue Starbucks. I've been drinking their tea, and now I want to get Come on.
Game on.
They can't prove I don't want to be cummed on.
It's something about their tea. It's not organic. There's fucking Roundup in their tea.
Yeah, something's up, but I want some loads.
Well, they're starting to pass out lawsuits against glyphosate. Speaking of that, Roundup, that shit, $2 billion, and another guy got $5 million. Well, he needs a better lawyer. Right, because his lawyer got him $5 million. The other people's lawyers got him billions.
What's the drug?
Oh, it's not a drug. It's Roundup. It's that weed killer shit. Monsanto weed killer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it gives people cancer, and they're finally passing down these massive judgments against Monsanto.
Wow.
Yeah, the weight of it all. See, Monsanto jury hits Monsanto with $2 billion judgment. But there was that one, and then there was another one for $5+ million. That guy's got to be pissed right now. How the fuck did I only get $5 million?
Now, $2 billion, is that exact, or are they rounding up? Hot dog. Count it.
You should open with that tonight at the Improv.
I will.
On Hollywood.
Hey, folks, you hear about this this thing called Roundup?
Most people don't even know what it is.
No,
unless they're like serious GMO haters. They're people that are like super organic and they don't want any pesticides in their food. That's one thing that people need to understand. If you're buying vegetables and you eat a lot of vegetables, it's very good for you. But man, there is a lot of fucking pesticides out there.
This is what's bumming me out. The more I do, because I just always just ate garbage or whatever without thinking about it. Now, the more research I do, the more I'll read about, because I like to read health benefits of the food I'm eating while I'm eating it, because it makes it feel like, oh, all right, I'm doing something good.
Right.
But then the bottom of the page, like, if you eat too much broccoli, you'll shit your blood or whatever. There's always something, or there's pesticides or whatever the fuck.
And I couldn't agree more. My hope is that what you were saying and what we were discussing earlier about how the internet has sort of eroded our faith in many institutions as being the only or the primary source of knowledge, that I hope that takes place globally in terms of the way we view government.
Yeah.
And that we do, and that your idea of like, I love what America stands for. And what America stands for is kind of a nation that's where people go to. You know, this is one of the more insidious problems with this idea of building walls and keeping people out and making it incredibly difficult to get here. The reason why I'm here is because it was pretty easy to get here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
That's the essence of America, a free and open society.
Come here and do better.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind it. And I would hope that this idea of being able to just, if you want to do better, you can anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
This could eventually spread out.
Yeah.
This is my hope.
I believe it can spread out, and you know, I see many signs of hope in America. America has become a big part of my life, not just because I wrote this book, but because I have children who are now living in America. I have a son and daughter-in-law who live in LA. I have another son and daughter-in-law who live in Boston. America, I'm British, but America has become a very central part of my life, and it's a fascinating and amazing country, and it's been my privilege to travel thousands of miles across America, across many, many, many different states, and I love this country. It's an amazing place. Only in America could we see
happening what has happened with cannabis. You know, the fact that at a local level, individuals have got together, mobilized petitions, organized votes, and changed the law. Literally stuck a finger up at central government and said, fuck off. This is none of your business. What I do with my consciousness in the inner sanctum of my own life is not the business of the state. That's a very American feeling. It's something that you don't find often in other countries where the state is granted much more power and much more authority than it perhaps should be. Americans are naturally questioning of government authority. And that is what has led to the increasing legalization of cannabis, which is going to change the world in lots of ways. But then ironically, at the same time, see, the thing about democracies is that in order to get things done in a democracy, you need to persuade people of your point of view. So information becomes very important in democracies. And information can be abused. People can be misled with information. They can be told that what they're receiving is the truth, whereas in fact it's not the truth. And you can end up with a kind of dictatorship that the people have given their assent to on the basis of false information. And frankly, I'd rather have a real dictatorship, which is out in the open and clear, rather than one that has been subtly manipulated into position through manipulating the views of the voters. But I am and remain enormously encouraged by America. It may seem like a trivial issue, but the fact that state by state cannabis is being legalized, and that is resulting from a grassroots movement, that this enormous change has been made. It's ironic, it's strange that at the federal level, even though, 8 states now totally legal for recreational, 24 states legal for medical use, that at the federal level it's still a Schedule I controlled drug. This is a huge state of dissonance that exists, and America's going to have to put it right. What it says to me is that people can change things. People can get together at the local level, and they can make a better world. Because there's no doubt that the cannabis laws were vicious and wrong and cruel and evil and ruined people's lives for decades. And it's people who've changed that. It's not government who's changed that. It's the people at the grassroots level. America's a country where that can happen. And I remain encouraged about the role of the American people, while often in despair about the role of the American state.
Yeah, I'm encouraged as well. And, it's interesting. Ben and Jerry released something yesterday, which is really, or on 420, I should say, which was talking about the drug laws in this country and talking about how many, it's really opening the idea of like how unjust these laws were, and how many of these laws targeted people of color, and how many people who are white people have profited off of this, and how many people are still in jail for crimes that they committed, air quote crime. They're no longer crimes. Should be explained. California has made some steps in that direction. I think some expunging. So what opens up next is psilocybin is now going to be on the ballot.
Absolutely.
And when that opens up, what you really think marijuana is a gateway drug? Well, guess what? It is if psilocybin gets in.
Yes.
Because psilocybin can legitimately change the world.
It certainly can.
It really, I think marijuana can change the world, and I really do think that cannabis is changing people's perceptions and making people more calm and friendly, and even what they talk about with paranoia. I welcome that, and the reason why I welcome that is I think people are entirely too cocky.
Yeah,
the life we live is bizarre as you could ever imagine in a book, and we're just accustomed to it because it's our day-to-day
Take
existence.
it all for granted. Yeah,
marijuana removes those blinders.
It does,
and it really makes you understand that this is a strange life, and a lot of these pitfalls and problems that we have in our society are due to fear, and they're due to ignorance, and they're due to this lack of connection with each other. And cannabis and many of these other psychedelic drugs, they encourage this connection with each other, which is, I think, what we need.
It's certainly what we need, and it's an aberration in human culture that we've created a society that demonized these substances and that made them illegal. It's a relatively recent thing. It's really just the last 100 years. It's a tiny part of the human story, and yet we're so arrogant as a society that we could set aside thousands of years of human tradition and experience and wisdom working with the plant medicines. We just set it aside, turn them into criminal substances, and say we know everything. What a huge and stupid mistake that is. On cannabis as a quote-unquote gateway drug, it absolutely is in this sense that the legalization of cannabis is going to open the doors to, as you say, to the legalization of psychedelics, because what's happening is that the population is completely waking up to the fact that they have been bullshitted and lied to about cannabis for the best part of a century. And once that dawns on people, the realization at a direct personal level, here's this herb I love. I have been lied to, systematically misinformed by central government about this herb. That leads to questioning of everything that central government does. And so in that sense, it is a gateway to a questioning society. The psychedelics are different in that psilocybin actually does lead you to question stuff.
Yes.
It leads you to really ask questions about everything, about your role in the world, about you as a person, about how you relate to other people, and about the whole system on this planet and the beautiful, gorgeous planet that we have and what we're doing to it. That also enters awareness. So
it erodes confidence and authority, and it also erodes confidence and authority that doesn't have experiences that you've experienced.
Exactly.
That's the part of the problem, is that these people that are holding people back from these psychedelic experiences, they've never had them.
They've never had
them. So they don't even know what they're rallying against.
They're coming to it from a place of fear and prejudice. Yes. They're simply accepting stuff that they've been told without really thinking it through and examining it. And again, it's a failure of what human beings should be doing. We have to get rid of this fear.
And ironically, it's bad for them as well.
Of
it's
course.
bad for the people that are actually encouraging these laws to be enforced.
Yes, it's bad for the whole of society.
Yes.
Because it is healthy for a society where adults become self-realized individuals, where they make their own responsible choices about their own lives, where they don't say, "Oh, government must make this choice for me." That's the next step for humanity. We need to start becoming our own leaders and making our own choices. And that is what's being revealed now that we're getting to the skull beneath the smile of the war on drugs. We're realizing that it's part of a big program of lying that has been about keeping people's minds closed down, not wanting free thinking. I've made this point several times, but our society is not against altered states of consciousness as such. Our society will allow Big Pharma to make billions of dollars with drugs that alter consciousness, like Seroxat and Prozac, antidepressants, which, in my opinion, having had some experience of them, are amongst the most horrible drugs on the planet. They are very harmful, very dangerous drugs, but they're completely legal and they're encouraged with our system. Likewise, alcohol, very dangerous drug, causes fights, causes drunk driving accidents, leads to cirrhosis of the liver, completely legal and open. Our society is not against altered states of consciousness. As such, it's against particular kinds of altered states of consciousness that lead to questioning of the existing control system. That's what's going on here.
Hear, hear. Well said.
And as you know, I have my own story with cannabis.
Yes.
And
well, you and I had a moment.
we had a moment which was quite a life-changing moment for me, because if I may just rehearse a little bit of this for the audience. In 2011, I had a series of ayahuasca sessions in which it was shown to me that I was using cannabis completely wrong, that it had become a dominant force in my life, that it was making me, you're speaking about paranoia, and I agree with you, paranoia is a useful thing, if only to overcome it, that it was making me paranoid, that it was making me suspicious, that I approached everybody around me in a state of suspicion. And I was shown this by ayahuasca and given a very strong message: you need to quit cannabis. What I didn't realize at the time is that the problem was not cannabis, the problem was me, that I needed to fix those aspects of myself before I could have a proper relationship with cannabis. So after that ayahuasca session, having smoked cannabis for decades, literally 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, I quit. I quit for 3 years. And then I'm on your show, and we're sitting opposite one another as we are now, and you ask me a question, are you still off the cannabis? And I say, well, I'm thinking of dipping my toes back in the water, at which point you produce a joint and we smoke it together. First of all, after 3 years, your tolerance is way down on cannabis. So I got really stoned. I did listen to that interview back, and somehow I held it together.
Oh, you held it together brilliantly. You opened up, and it was like a wave of information came pouring out of you. It was wonderful to watch.
It was a liberation for me. And what it said to me is, it's time to go back to cannabis, but perhaps in a different way.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I need a different relationship with this amazing medicine, and if I can forge that, if I can make that different relationship happen, then it can be a constructive and positive part of my life. And I can say definitely that has been the case. And
That's excellent.
And so it's all thanks to you, Joe. I probably would still be off cannabis if it hadn't been for that joint.
Has there been discussion, like, has anybody brought this out? Like, Dan Crenshaw was not aware of this when I discussed it with him when they was talking about federally legalizing marijuana.
Right.
That it's not just about saying it's okay for kids.
Right.
But it's about mitigating these problems that you have with cartels.
Sure.
Because when there is an illegal opportunity to sell something
Right.
that there's a demand for, then the criminals are going to sell it. And that's what
Exactly.
you have now.
Exactly.
And has there been discussion, like, to someone to bring this up? Like, this is one of the primary problems with having marijuana federally illegal, with California having it state legal, that there is this massive confusion and this, diminishing of penalties in California
Yeah.
with growing illegally.
There totally is. And, you got the opposite ends of the spectrum. And here's what we're learning with regulation. And I've always said this. I said, look, if we're going to regulate, and we need to regulate to stop this black market, let's do it smart. Let's, for one, everything we really tried to push here in California was regulate legitimate cannabis the correct way, keep people safe.
Test it.
Test it.
Make sure those pesticides, the cartel pesticides, aren't
Absolutely, man. And as long as people aren't hurting themselves or other people, they're not destroying waterways, we're not getting in gunfights over it, great, no problem. But for like the outdoor trespassing with these cartels, let's take that funding and put more effort into stopping that. Let's not water it down to misdemeanors and infractions and do things like that. And it's and even we can even take cannabis out of the equation, Joe, from the standpoint of, I remember a few years ago I was quoted by the Associated Press of saying, if cherry tomatoes were so desired on the black market and were illegal, and people were paying $4,000 a pound for cherry tomatoes, we'd be having gunfights over cherry tomatoes and having banned poisons on cherry tomatoes that our kids would be eating in their salads, because of the black market. So you can take, cannabis even out of the equation and look at the environmental impacts and look at the public safety. But we have to do something to regulate this thing uniformly over across the board, and we have to break the black market. But what I've seen, and I go into the last chapter of my new book, Hidden War, extensively on this, is what are the challenges moving forward after seeing regulation in play for 2 years? Boots on the ground, watching it, and having a great relationship with legitimate cannabis growers. And I'll tell you a few stories that really opened my eyes and got us unified, right? Because the whole thing is we need to be unified on this concept, not polarized left or right, anti-cannabis, pro-cannabis. Let's get unified on environmental safety, public safety, all of it. But because of how we've regulated and the licensing fees and the protocol and everything else, we've had all of these, black market growers in the 215 days that wanted to get legal and saw everything coming and the cost to do it and being on Big Brother's radar or law enforcement's radar, and they backed out. Like in Humboldt County, we had I want to say in the better part of 10 to 50,000 growers ready to regulate, and we barely got 1,000, and they went, I can't afford to go through this permitting process. I can't afford the delays, so I'm just going to go back on the black market. I'm not going to be on the radar.
Wow.
And that has to stop if we're going to regulate, right?
Yeah.
The thing that was really interesting, and I never saw this coming, but when we were about to roll out Prop 64 and, it had been voted for recreational and the medical laws were tightening up, I was the first law enforcement guy, being from a marijuana enforcement team, to go into these California Grower Association hosted grower meetings. And my first one was in Santa Cruz, right over the hill from my place, right? And I mean, I'm in the BDUs, the camo bottoms, the polo. I'm going into my training attire for Met, and the look on 500 growers' faces when I walked into that meeting, just like, what's he doing here? Conflict of interest. He's working us. He's a guy's watching our license plates, and I'm just like, guys, everybody breathe. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to show you a PowerPoint. It's going to be graphic. I'm not here to work anybody. I'm here to unify. Just hear what I have to say. No judgment. And so I was
Were these guys aware of how big the situation was before you showed them that?
I would have thought so, because they're in the industry,
Yes.
right? They know weed better than just about anybody.
Yeah, they're high all the time.
They're not seeing the cartel. They're just
They're not paying attention. They're just growing pot.
yeah, that's all. I didn't see that guy. Was that kind of trail camera? Why's he got a backpack like 300 pounds of pipe?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Explain that. I mean, these guys
Yeah.
literally would back in hundreds and hundreds of yards
Yeah.
pipe and of
Yeah.
tubing, like for hoses on their back.
Oh, they're tough. Yeah, I've got photos in the new book on trail cam with felt on their feet, covering their tracks with these sea bags, 100+ pounds, and a spool of pipe going up, man.
People don't know how hard that is to do. I mean, if these
hard.
guys just took a legit job,
Yeah.
they'd be like the best employees you'd ever have.
Oh, they would, man. They're tough, and I mean, to look at the environment they live in for 6 months, man.
Yeah.
They're all outdoors. But I was at this meeting, and I gave the presentation. I talked about it, and it was crazy to see a look of shock on these grower groups' faces. I mean, some women were in tears. Some of the guys were just like pissed off and pumping their fists, and they're like, "That's bullshit. We are not about that. We're not about doing anything bad with our water. We like our wildlife. We just want to grow cannabis. We want to be regulated, you know?" And it was such a turnaround, you know, from the traditional relationship between law enforcement and the cannabis world, and to be the one guy there with all of the growing community there, and then go from complete horror that I was there as an adversary or judgment or anything of that, or, you know, to do anything negative from an enforcement standpoint, to suddenly having real talks of what was going out. And I could kind of see the authenticity, the genuineness on some of their faces, the way they reacted to my slides, to the videos. And so when I left that first meeting, I remember I just got flooded at my patrol truck, and I had Apollo with me, my little lab, and she's an icebreaker. I thought, well, it could be an interesting meeting. I should have the dog for pets, you know? And she jumped in, and all these growers were coming to my truck, and I'm packing up my stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is weird. And it was all these, you know, farmer supervisors from all over the state, you know, Mendocino County, up in the Emerald Triangle, Santa Cruz, and they're just giving me their cards, and I go, hey, Lieutenant, I have workers, I have resources. We will hike in and clean up a grow with you. Let us help the Met team. Let us help the cannabis program. Whatever we can do, and no charge. And that was genuine, man. I was really, really taken back by that in a positive way. And I realized if we get the legitimate farmers on our side and they're aware of this, they will help market that message.
Also, they have money.
And they have money.
Yeah, I mean, the legitimate farmers are making a lot of money. That would be a great way for, you know, tax-wise. There's extremely high taxes on cannabis as it is.
Right.
But if we could allocate that taxes
absolutely
to you guys, that would be incredible. I mean, where's the money going? Let's have a certain percentage of it designated for wardens.
That's starting to happen too, because now that we've had a couple of years and we're seeing some of the regulatory funding and the taxes trickle back, I'm in contact with my team all the time. I still get to see them periodically and train and do things like that, and really give them a shout out for all the amazing, you know, risks they're taking and the work they're doing, and promote their message of what they're out there doing. But the money's starting to come back to us now. So we're starting to get equipment. We're starting to get more bodies. We're starting to get like overtime funding. So the ridiculous long hours our small team works, they're compensated for. That just happened literally, you know, within a month or two of being on the show with you. So we're seeing some positives from that.
Get those rates raised.
We're trying.
Yeah, I mean,
we're trying. Alert the press.
40% is disgusting.
Hey, this coffee's awesome.
Pretty damn
by the way.
good.
Oh
Shout
my
out
gosh.
to Laird Hamilton.
Laird Hamilton, man. I'm not even a coffee drinker, and I'm loving this stuff.
It's great stuff.
I'm a convert now.
It makes your mouth smack though. It gives you a little.
It does a little.
Yeah,
you gotta like.
You gotta clear your throat a lot.
Yeah.
It's coconut oil and turmeric and all that jazz.
Healthy. Yeah.
Colorado was the first state to legalize it, and Washington State. Do they have similar problems?
They still have a black market, you know, and the thing right now, because we're not regulating federally, and so every state, anything that's grown stays in that state per law, right? But all the demand is back east in these non-regulated states where they don't grow it. So Colorado has, you know, an interstate black market that's done by the, you know, quasi-legitimate growers as well as the cartel element. So there's still that black market thriving within, you know, the black market cannabis industry that isn't cartel public lands. We've got different mixes, and we've got different.
So it's a different kind of a problem in Colorado. So they don't have as many cartel grows.
Not as many. They have some. They have some. I've talked to those guys and worked with them a little bit, and they do have some. But again, they're kind of like where I'm at in Montana now. Tight little growing window, you know, early winters, late thaws. So they don't have a very big growing season outdoors. The conditions aren't prime like they are here in Cali.
This is a giant issue that is largely undiscussed, and it's one of the reasons why I was so fascinated by that podcast. And this is one more piece of the puzzle when you're talking about border control.
Right.
That somehow or another we've gotten into this state in our country, this place in our country where some people want to control the border and some people don't want any borders.
Right.
And you have to understand that this is the number one problem with the border. The number one problem with the border is cartel violence.
Right.
Cartel violence, cartel crime, that's the number one problem. And the giant percentage of these people that are coming over and doing illegal activity are doing it because it's profitable.
Right.
And the reason why it's profitable is because it's illegal. And so they can do these things and sell marijuana all over this country illegally because it's illegal. And if it was legal, we could regulate it, we could tax it. The money could go into schools and pay for guys like you and go to fixing this problem. And instead, we're playing this little stupid game where, you know, some states are legal and some states aren't. And, you know, let's you know, and it's federally, it's still a Schedule I crime when there's millions of legitimate law-abiding, tax-paying citizens that enjoy it, and it's crazy.
It is, and to that point, you know, you look at you know, the discrepancy and just the inconsistency on cannabis regulation. Some states, some not, federally not. But when you get to the border issue, you brought up that good point of it's not just that cartel element for this poison cannabis stuff or this toxically tainted cannabis is a better way to phrase it. It's the smuggling, you know, the human trafficking. It's all those other crimes, that methamphetamine production. So I'm not, you know, I get asked a lot, like after, you know, and you had a great conversation with Mike Baker on this was, you know, are open borders going to work? And no, we got to have some regulation. It's just not going to work because
the world's not even. So that's why open borders aren't going to work.
Right.
If the world was even and there was, you know, I mean, there's like extreme crime right below us. And, you know, I had Ed Calderon on who works for Mexico.
We just started dialoguing last week.
I like that guy a lot.
Good guy, yeah.
Boy, does he scare the shit out of you, though, when he tells you the stories about Mexico, about how bad it is down there.
Yeah.
And there's just an insane amount of violence that's going on down there, and an insane amount of crime. And so much of it is connected to the illegal drug trade.
Yeah.
And look, you're not going to kill it all if you make marijuana legal. But you would kill a percentage. At least it would make it a little bit better, and it would stop that.
Yeah, and one of the things we get from getting that regulation, if we can stop that black market for, you know, cartel weed, we're going to save a lot of wildlife.
Yes.
We're going to preserve a lot of waterways, right? Because all those other crimes are very heinous and very destructive, and I hate to see the human trafficking and all the meth problems and anything that relates to violence or a deterioration of a soul, but you know, I love the wild, man. The woods are my church. Yours too. I mean, what you do for conservation, the elk hunting that you're doing, and all those different things. I mean, it's magical out there, and it's just
most people just don't even know. I don't think.
No, but
they just don't get a chance to experience what it's like to actually be in the real woods.
Be in the real woods, which are getting shrinker, smaller, and smaller and smaller. Even here in Cali, that has so much beauty. But I look at it this way. I said, look. If we lose all of our open space to a problem like this, and it compounds the problem, and we lose our wildlife and good water, you may not be into the outdoors right now. You might be a preservationist. You might be, you know, on your freaking digital device all the time and looking at wildlife through a screen. But if you ever do go out and you get that peace and tranquility and you get centered like we do, run a trail, hike a, you know, LA County mountain trail or open space, don't even get that far in the woods, it's just soothing.
Yes.
You know, it brings us back to our center. And, you know, if the new generations that aren't getting that from the cities can get that, or they can get their kids doing it or their grandkids or hear about it, but it's not there to go to. That to me, man, we're just not paying it forward enough. So this is something I got to stay on, and I really appreciate you and what you stand for because of the message. I think just so many people don't know.
Yeah, I just think that's a big part of it.
It's just they don't know.
What's interesting to me too is that the allocation of resources. That it's so when you have something that's illegal, you're not getting any of that money.
No.
And if it was legal, there's an enormous amount of money that could go to schools and fix the roads, and we can allocate it to a bunch of different
big time, really
positive ways to spend it.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that. And it's the reason why is because it's illegal. And this crime problem is very similar to what they faced during Prohibition with alcohol, the rise of organized crime. I mean, that's where they were getting their money from because there was such a demand. Yeah. It's really a disgusting, dumb way to approach a problem that is, in many people's ideas, a social problem. That money could go to so many different positive things.
Yeah, when we're perpetuating it through that reason and many others, we're basically embedding the problem in our country. And Ed said this, Calderon, we were dialoguing earlier this week, and he said, he's kind of looked at things from the border and south and the issues coming in from the border, from the cartel front. He said, now I'm getting wind of your book and I'm starting to analyze what you guys are fighting on the ground inside the borders in California and the rest of the country. He goes, it's embedded now. I mean, it's not like it's just coming across. I mean, the enterprise is embedded here in the nation because they have the pipeline, they have the distribution, they have a market, and they don't have to deal with a border issue. And they're comfortable because of exactly where we're at and what people aren't aware of.
And in California, that it's just a misdemeanor, which is even more insane.
Yeah, that's got to change.
That's got to change. It should be something horrendous. If you actually have a background in crime,
right,
especially particularly violent crime, when you get caught doing something like that, it should be severe penalty.
It should absolutely be severe. Now, the saving grace of that is when we get the environmental crimes that we bring from the Fish and Wildlife standpoint to those charges for these guys, we get it back to felony status. Because we had an interesting thing happen as soon as all that regulation started 2 years ago, and those trespass grow crimes were watered down to what we're talking about. District attorneys all throughout the state said, "Oh man, we're not going to be able to prosecute these crimes. I mean, we're not going to have we're not going to have a jury that's sympathetic to these issues." It's not worth it. Some sheriff's departments were saying, hey, we know how violent these guys are. We know your team's been in like 6 gunfights, man. Your partner was almost killed in 2005 in the first one. You guys take these guys head on. You want to protect your wildlife, whatever, but they're not stopping. And it's a misdemeanor and we can't convict them, so we're not going to play. So the backlash of those crimes being watered down, Joe, was teams stopped working it except us and like the feds, And not only that, DAs couldn't prosecute. So I remember speaking for the California District Attorney Association on this and saying, guys, there's a solution. Everybody, no matter where they sit on the cannabis spectrum, everybody hates to see Bambi dead, water poisoned. Everyone has a little bit of environmental passion in them on both sides of the fence. And that's where I say here we get to we can unify and not worry about where we sit on the for or against. And if you take these water code enhancements, if you take the felony and the penal code from the banned toxics like carbofuran, if you take a streambed alteration diversion or dead wildlife or littering close to a state waterway, you stack all those up, you get all these penalties, and you can convict on that, even in a sympathetic jury on, say, a cannabis issue. So we started to prosecute these cases and they started to come back. And it's an arduous end around. It's more work than we should have to do, but we're doing it.
What is the attitude in Mexico, especially amongst people who are studying the narco wars, with all this build that wall stuff, all this what's going on in America? There's this is very strange right versus left polarization over here about whether or not there should be a wall between the United States and Mexico.
Sure. The thing, Mexicans are obviously very anti-Trump. In Mexico is Trump. Trump is very unpopular from the very beginning. When he said, they are rapists
and murderers. Yeah, someone's doing the raping. Yeah.
He's kind of if you look at surveys, the level's very low.
Does anybody like Trump in Mexico? Is there there's always contrarians somewhere.
I've seen numbers like people say 80% or something. I think he's terrible, so it means there must be a 20% somewhere who don't. I haven't met a Mexican who's been pro-Trump. I never have. I met a Salvadoran who was pro-Trump one time. He had a guy who'd been deported, and he was like, "I know this guy Trump's going to turn out to be a great president." So I see that, but Mexico is very, very anti-Trump. In terms of the wall, there's in terms of what. In terms of the smugglers, I was talking to a smuggler in Nogales about this, and he was describing he was from Nogales, from a neighborhood called Buenos Aires, which is right on the border with the United States. It's Nogales, Sonora, Nogales, Arizona. Sorry, Nogales, Sonora, and Nogales, Arizona. And he was from the neighborhood right on the border there. And he described that he first took people over the border of the United States back in the 1980s. When he was at school. He was at high school. And the reason was that that time it was just an old fence. And there was a hole in the fence. They used to go through into the United States and go back into Mexico, just an old wire fence. And the first time he took people through, people would arrive from southern Mexico and say, how do we get into the US? And he'd say, this way. And they give him a tip. He said the first time he got the equivalent of about 50 cents was what he made to take people into the United States, 50 cents. Nowadays, the cost of going into the US is $5,000. That's what you paid to go illegally into the United States, $5,000. So he's saying, wow, look at that increase. Every time that the US puts more security, it means it's more expensive. When it's more expensive, that means more money going to criminals, which means there's now an industry doing it. So now the cartels make a big percentage of that money of human smuggling into the US. But like in terms of the wall, I mean, when Trump first came in, he had the line that Mexico's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then there was this kind of line, right at the beginning, he threatened Mexican president, saying if you don't agree to pay for the wall, then why are you going to come and meet me? And then it was like, wow, he's really going to try and shake down Mexico for like billions of dollars. He's really going to try and do that. And that was kind of scary moment then, I think, from the point of view of Mexico. When he first got to power, it was like he's going to do that, and then he's going to deport 3 million, and he's going to kill NAFTA. Actually, those things haven't really come to pass. Actually, if you look over the last couple of years of Trump, it hasn't really hit Mexico very hard.
So the concern was that he was going to take money that should be allocated to other ways that's going to help Mexico, and he was going to try to take that and use it to build the wall?
I mean, no one really knew. When he first came in, he's like, Mexico's going to pay for this wall.
Right, the wall just got 10 foot higher. Remember that?
Yeah, and it was like, how are you going to do that? You're going to start threatening Mexico militarily and say, give us money. I mean, it was kind of like is it a shakedown? You're going to do a shakedown. It was kind of a crazy diplomatic thing when he first got in. So that was kind of scary for a moment from the point of view of Mexico. But I think after you look at the last couple of years, he hasn't really hit Mexico with that. Now, if he wants to build the wall, now obviously there's the big fuss in terms of the spending here. But if he wants to build it or extend it, because there is wall in sections of the border already. If he wants to extend it, it won't stop a lot of the hard drugs. I mean, if you look at heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, high-value drugs, they normally go through the ports of entry.
Right.
So
shipping.
Yeah, I mean they go
boats.
Or through the ports of entry, through you have in cars.
Right.
Cars, trucks. I mean, you go through, if you look at the Laredo. One of the reasons that was a big fight and the war started there in Mexico is because that's a very valuable territory. There's something like 8,000 trucks go over that border every day. Now, if you have 8,000 trucks, how many of those can you search in a day? And also the way they can hide this stuff in trucks, they can hide drugs in like a metal. They can put them in some kind of metal container, seal it up, solder it up, put a bunch of stuff so it doesn't smell. So somebody has to say, I'm going to open that with a blowtorch. I'm not just searching. I have to rip that vehicle apart to find the drugs.
They were putting them inside wheels.
Yeah. And that's like inside tires and stuff. That's like there's one of the older tricks from the 70s. There's a song. One of the first narco corridos, the drug ballads. It was called Contraband and Treason from the 1970s, and that was about hiding marijuana back in tires back then. But yeah, I mean now the trap cars now are like super sophisticated. They have some weird trap cars where you have to do like a bunch of stuff, like open the door, move some stuff to actually open and find the drugs.
Oh, there's like some trick sort of door that has to be activated. Yeah, I would imagine if there's a will, there's a way, and there's that much. I mean, I remember hearing that from, it's not a reliable source, but from The Sopranos. They were talking about only 20% of all the shipping containers that get brought into America get searched.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the hard drugs are going a lot of time through the ports of entry, and they have another classic trick they have is they allow some to get busted. So you allow one guy to get busted. They set somebody up. So they're taking some drugs through. They get busted. All the energy's on them, and then meanwhile more drugs are going through.
And is this the United States border that's catching this guy?
Yeah.
So they're not getting tested in Mexico as they cross over, right? It's only the United States border.
Yeah. Sometimes they might catch them in Mexico. Sometimes, but the majority is going to be the United States.
Are the United States Border Patrol guys, are they ever caught being corrupt?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's been cases of U.S. Border Patrol and customs entry people who have been caught taking a bunch of money, taking bribes, allowing certain cars through.
Of course.
Certain vehicles through. So yeah,
just the anecdotal research that some of these people have had these incredibly life-changing experiences. But I think one of the things that you're saying is I think is very important is that this isn't for everybody, and that if you have problems with normal consciousness, this is likely not for you. If you're one of those people that has schizophrenia in your family, perhaps.
Forget it.
Yeah, don't do it.
And in fact, those people are screened out of this research very carefully.
Yeah. Schizophrenia, it's a real issue with people with psilocybin and many psychedelics, right?
Yeah, what happens with schizophrenia is if you are at risk for it, either because of inheritance, a psychedelic trip can set you off, can be the trigger for a life of it. And other things can too. A divorce, your parents getting divorced sets people off. Going to graduate school sets people off. If you're someone who's probably going to get schizophrenia, any kind of mental trauma, if it happens at that window, which is in your early 20s and your late 20s, I think, and that's why we did see some cases, because that's the age people were using psychedelics in the 60s, of having their first psychotic break. So so if you're at risk for that or
and
bipolar
marijuana as well, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, marijuana can do it also.
And I think the numbers though mirror the numbers in standard populations. When in terms of I think it's 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 people have some form of schizophrenia, and that's mirrored in marijuana use.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
I think it's the same. I think the problem is, it can exacerbate it, or it can trigger it, or, depending upon, everyone's biology is different, and everyone's, the way they absorb these chemicals is different.
Yeah. And, if you are at risk, something's going to do it eventually.
Right.
So, we don't have any evidence of someone thrown into a situation of schizophrenia or other serious mental illness as a result of strictly because of a psychedelic experience. It may have been the trigger, but there might have been, it was going to happen anyway.
Right.
We just don't know. But in general, if you have personality disorder, if you have bipolar, if you are at risk for schizophrenia, they will not accept you into these trials, and you should stay away from these drugs.
Yeah, that is a real problem with it being prohibited. The prohibition has really set back research and understanding decades. We should have been studying this stuff since the 60s.
We had 30 years of hiatus in the research. I don't know of another time where you had a promising line of scientific inquiry all through the 50s and early 60s that's just choked off. And for 30 years, nothing happened. Think of what we would know if we had 30 more years of research with these drugs.
It's crazy.
So now we're picking up the thread, and all that research is being resumed. But your point about prohibition is really important. When you have prohibition, you can't regulate something. It's a free-for-all. Whereas if you did legalize psilocybin, let's take as an example, you could set rules. You could say that it can only be administered by licensed guides or in a medical context, or that no one under a certain age can have it. It gives you a chance to regulate, and that's why it's saner to legalize, not in a free-for-all kind of way, but in a very considered way, than to have the system we have now, where people are going to take the drug, whether they should or not, without any kind of clearance. And by the way, who knows what you're getting? You can also regulate the strength and in the case of LSD, in the 60s, there was this period where there was a lot of pure LSD around, and then the mob got interested in it, and they started cutting it with speed and all sorts of things. And people got into a lot of trouble.
It's not simply a perspective enhancer. It changes how your body and your brain deal with opiates.
I think Tim Ferriss has actually talked about that before as well.
Yeah.
But I've seen it in my practice, and there are medical studies. So I don't think that we should throw out the fact that cannabis can help the opioid crisis, and then also too, you want to look at it from a clinical perspective, right? So we know that opioids can kill people, right? Because it acts on the brainstem, whereas cannabis doesn't. So you might be saying, you're just substituting one for the other. And, sometimes that is true. But if you're using a less harmful substance, to me, that's like a huge win,
Yes.
right? So if someone, has to drink, 12 beers a night versus smoking like one joint, man, that's awesome. And I mean, you look at all these clinics, like you look at like methadone clinics. I mean, what are they doing? They're trying to get people off one substance to, a substance that is a little bit less harmful.
Yes.
And I think that when you use cannabis, it can be effective for opioids. It can also be effective for benzodiazepines and for other medicines as well. So, it would be awesome if everyone would just, feel happy and great all the time by just exercise and nutrition. And, that's what I advocate, and that's what I try to do personally. And that's what I try to, say to my patients all the time. But I understand, though, that, sometimes life is hard. Sometimes, things hit you. You have crisis in your life. You have, personal crisis that can, throw off your mental health. And then you get into a car accident, and you could be in really severe pain. And in those times, sometimes diet, exercise, meditation, doing all the right things just isn't quite enough. And, I think that it's great that we have cannabis for those situations, because it does seem to be, very effective and has less side effects compared to some of the other medicines, that we have traditionally used. And, even though, I'm talking about opiates and deaths, we can also talk about NSAIDs, right? Like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So, these drugs can also, wreak havoc on your GI system. I saw one study, actually, I tweeted out, Rhonda Patrick tweeted out, said that if you use NSAIDs, it was really short. I got to look it up again, but it was like 2 weeks. It can decrease your gonadotropins, which can stimulate your testosterone level by like 25%. And on that note, too, we should talk about, I can't believe I forgot to talk about this, but opioids can drastically inhibit your testosterone production, right? Which is a huge thing for depression. Because I've had guys come in to me before that have been, really, really depressed. You just give them a small amount of testosterone, and man, they're off their antidepressants and they're off to the races. They're doing great. So, are we creating a lot of people who are depressed because they're using opiates and their testosterone levels are low? And for men, I mean, having low testosterone is horrible. Your libido goes, you're going to have low motivation. You're not going to feel as well. You're not going to want to do things. So, if you're giving someone a medicine that nails their testosterone levels down, that's going to really, wreak havoc on their mental health. And I just want to make a note too, because Ben Greenfield, who, again, I really, really respect, I like that guy a lot, was talking a little bit with you about testosterone and cannabis and how it can drop it. So I think there was 3 studies I saw done on humans, and 2 of them noted no statistical difference in drop in testosterone levels, and the other study noted a small statistical difference. So I think that it may drop your testosterone levels a little bit, but it's not going to substantially drop them. So just so people know that, because I know that comes up all the time.
Yes, as the dumb anti-drug advocates like to say, doobies cause boobies. Right?
Oh yeah, that is not right. There's no gynecomastia associated with that.
I'm joking. Right? Risperdal causes boobies, but that's a different issue. Risperdal is an antipsychotic.
Risperidone, yeah.
So look, I think the issue of whether cannabis is a gateway drug, it's 100% clear that cannabis is a gateway drug. The argument is why.
Did you say it's 100% clear?
100% clear. The argument is why. Okay, so it's quite clear that cannabis use oftentimes precedes other drug use, whether it's opioids, cocaine, other drugs. Now, one argument, and this is actually a pro-legalization argument, is one reason it's a gateway is that if it's illegal, you got to buy it from your friendly neighborhood dealer. He might have access to heroin or cocaine, other drugs. And so eventually maybe you decide to try one of those other drugs. So actually that's really why the Dutch legalized. They wanted to create an avenue for people to use cannabis that wasn't connected to other drugs. Okay. Another possibility is that using an addictive, intoxicating substance you might like it, and you might want to try other addictive, intoxicating substances, and it might prime your brain. And then the third possibility really is that there are just some people who are risk takers out there, right? They're going to use cannabis, they're going to gamble, and cannabis is a little bit easier to access than other drugs, so they're probably going to try cannabis first. So it's not really that cannabis drives the use, it's just that cannabis is first.
They're just curious people.
But what's your thoughts on
well, what I will say, I mean, I'm just going to go back to the NAM report, right? I mean, you quoted these people in your book. So this committee couldn't find sufficient data demonstrating an association between cannabis use and initiating opioid use. They found no compelling evidence to support the gateway drug theory.
So again,
but those are the people that you quoted in your book.
So there's been more research done since then. But
things have radically changed.
I would say things have changed some. Here's what I would probably say. I think that probably it's a combination of these things, right? There's certainly an environmental factor where, again, if you're buying from somebody who's got access to other illegal drugs, maybe you try those drugs. At the same time, getting high feels good, and maybe you want to try other drugs, and at the same time, you're just a risk taker. Okay. What nobody seriously ever said until about the last 5 years is that cannabis could be an off-ramp for opioids, okay? And there's a lot of reasons to believe that's a really bad idea. First of all, cannabis, if you actually need opioids for pain relief, cannabis is not a good enough pain reliever. It's like alcohol. It's a mild pain reliever. It's not strong enough. If you're dying from cancer, cannabis probably is not the pain reliever that you need. You need opioids, okay? And the state level data is not as good. If you want to really figure out what's happening to an individual, the best way to do that is to follow that individual. And there's a really good paper that came out in 2017 after the NAM report, so they didn't have it, that shows that people who used cannabis in 2001, this is based on a large national study in the US, were 3 times as likely to be using opioids 3 years later. Okay, and that just intuitively makes sense to me. And the other thing that people on the legalization side don't ever talk about is who are the 2 countries that have the most cannabis use in the West? The U.S. and Canada. Who are the two countries that have by far the worst opioid epidemic? The U.S. and Canada.
Okay, but there's a real issue with that because the United States is also the only country other than New Zealand that allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise.
Sure.
I mean, but
Canada doesn't.
The amount of opiates that are prescribed in the United States is fucking preposterous.
I agree.
Particularly I don't know if you ever saw the documentary, The OxyContin Express, but the way Florida used to be structured, where they didn't have a database.
Yep. And you could just literally go from pharmacy to pharmacy. Yeah. No, we have a problem with the way we prescribe drugs in this country. Opioids, ADD drugs, benzos, SSRIs, all of them.
And we're connected to Canada, so it makes sense that it would filter over there.
Yes, but what I would say is the people who think that cannabis is not part of that over-prescribing problem are deluding themselves.
And what do you think to that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
So I agree with Joe. The way the access to opioids in the U.S. I mean, certainly it's come down a little bit in the last couple of years. But Purdue Pharma, there's a special place in hell for those guys. But it's not just opioids. We prescribe too many benzos. We prescribe too many ADD drugs. We probably prescribe too many SSRIs. We prescribe too much in this country.
I think we all agree on that.
I agree with that.
And I think that cannabis is another example of us looking for a drug to solve our problems.
But what I'm again, just from a clinical perspective, I can't just rely on diet and exercise for all my patients. I have to use other tools.
Sure.
And again, like everyone here in this room, like we're all pretty healthy. I don't have a bad back or I don't have a mental health diagnosis or anything going on. So I have to look at patients that are coming to me, right? So the way I see it is that we just mentioned a bunch of other drugs, antidepressants, amphetamines, all these types of things. Cannabis, and again, I'm going to separate the THC and the CBD. It's an incredible medicine and it doesn't kill people, right? So as a clinician, that's so comforting for me to know that every single night I go to bed, I killed 0 people. I know that, right? So that's really, really comforting for me to know. Also, I feel, we were just talking about amphetamines and we were just talking about, SSRIs. I feel that cannabis, particularly the CBD component, can actually be more effective. That's what I've seen a lot in my practice, and other people have seen that as well. So, I think that we need to take that into consideration when we're using all these drugs. And Alex, some of the things that you're saying, they're quite, admirable, and a lot of things like researchers say, are quite admirable as well. And they feel that they can, tell clinicians, give them really good advice, but they're not the ones in the trenches. They're not the ones in front of the people. They're not the ones that have to chat with patients. I have an obligation to do something for my patients to make them better. I really feel, we just listed a bunch of drugs, that cannabis is a really, really effective tool, and it doesn't kill anybody. So, because of that, I'm gonna keep using it. But like I said, I'm always looking for other drugs. I'm always looking for other, alternatives to also help my patients. But I think that, using cannabis is a really effective tool for a lot of clinicians, and it's helped a lot of patients.
But what do you think about his argument about it being a gateway drug? Other than what these people said in the study, that there's no evidence that supports it, it's a gateway drug. What are your personal feelings about that argument?
So I don't feel that that cannabis is a gateway drug. I do feel that, one of the things that you mentioned earlier is that, some people kind of have this personality where they're like an experimenter, right? And they just want to try something. So, the fact is that alcohol and cannabis just get introduced first most of the time. Right. Most people, don't do, Coke or LSD and then hey man, let's try some cannabis, right? So it's just that's the very first one there. So you could say anything that was easier access. If there was some new drug that, did something similar to alcohol or similar to cannabis and that was introduced in our society, you'd be calling that the gateway drug. Well, and I do feel, and I do believe
alcohol has clearly been demonstrated as being the gateway drug to almost all hard drugs because of the loosening of inhibitions, whereas the opposite could be said about cannabis, that it makes you paranoid. You might actually be less likely to try cocaine afterwards.
And I know that the name, they don't feel that cannabis is a gateway drug either. I mean, again, they said, they found no compelling evidence to support the gateway theory. And again, I mean, these are the people that you are quoting in your book, Alex, again, right? Let me just go a little bit further. They said in a retrospective cohort study, Mayet from ETAL and the 2016 examined the transition from cannabis use to the use of other illicit drugs. They found that the probability of initiating other illicit drugs after cannabis did not differ significantly from the probability of starting with other illicit drugs. So it's just that cannabis is there first. It's definitely not a gateway drug in any stretch of the imagination.
Again, I totally disagree. And there's 50 years of data on this. I know the studies that he's quoting, but there are many others. And I think the argument is as to why. And again, I think the argument that to some extent having access to this drug via illegally tends to open you up to other illegal stuff, which to me is an argument for legalization. So, but I do want to throw one thing out there. I don't know how many of your viewers have teenage kids, or they're probably more likely to be teenage kids than to have teenage kids. But the book has the one thing that really worries me if we're talking about gateway drugs is that Juul and vaping are really a gateway to THC vaping. So you can
Why do you say that?
Because, well, first of all, it gets kids, teenagers used to inhaling, this illicit substance, and you can actually retrofit a Juul pod with THC. They don't sell them, but you can easily go online and look at how to do it. And I think it really worries me, and I've heard from a lot of parents in the last month that there is an epidemic of nicotine vaping and THC vaping going on right now. And that, I think, and we're talking about 15, 16, 17-year-olds inhaling pure THC, the most dangerous form of this drug. And I think, unfortunately, it's not going to take long before the mental health consequences of that become apparent. And I really do hope that the book gives parents some tools to talk to their kids about that, if nothing else.
But when you were young, when did you know that you wanted to be a singer?
I don't think I ever knew I wanted to be a singer.
Today?
I wanted to be,
do you know now?
Yes,
So
I know now.
It happened somewhere along the line.
But very recently, I mean, literally in the last, I'm serious, in the last 10 years, I was like, I'm really good at this, actually, and I enjoy it, and I guess this is what I do for a living. This is my thing.
In the last 10 years?
The last 10 years.
So what was going on with you, like, when Stupid Girl was coming out?
Well, I felt like I'd stumbled into that opportunity, which I did. I wanted to be, first of all, I wanted to be a writer. Then I wanted to be an actress. And then by total default, I was in a youth theatre when I was young, and I met this guy, and he was like, oh, would you come and play keyboards in my band for a weekend, because we've lost our keyboard player. And I joined the band, and then I just ended up being in that band for 10 years, playing keyboards and doing backup vocals. I was quite happy. I didn't harbour any ambition to be a lead singer at all. And then just a billion and one things happened, and I ended up being the lead singer of this very same band just so that we could survive, because we'd been dropped by our record label for going to Berlin and spending all our money on our record advance on drugs. And coming back and not having anything to show for it. So the record company dropped us but kept me. And so then I pulled the band in as my band. So we just sort of shifted all the roles.
Oh, wow.
So I found myself as the lead singer by default. And then our video
What kind
got
of drugs?
played. Oh, it was mostly speed and ecstasy.
Speed? Mm-hmm. How much money are you spending on speed? Jesus Christ.
It was an inordinate amount of money that got spent. It was our entire record advance.
How much was it?
I can't remember. I think it was something like £100,000.
What is that, like $50,000
wasting.
American, somewhere around there?
I think it's double that.
Double that? Oh, it's 200,000. It's
Yeah.
double. Oh, I'm doing it the opposite. Oh my God! How the
Yeah.
fuck did you spend $200,000
I don't
on
know.
speed?
I don't know how we did it. I mean, it wasn't all on speed, and it was alcohol and going out and drinking and partying and just wasting time and
In
paying
America,
for-
we call that going off.
we went off.
You guys went off.
We went totally off. And I wasn't one of I was one of the sober ones for the most part. I mean, and I know I did my share, but by comparison, I kept my shit together. But anyway, we wasted our opportunity there. But by default, I became a lead singer. Our video got played on MTV, and then I just chanced upon Garbage. The Garbage Boys needed a singer, and I got hired. And so I always felt I just fumbled into it by going off, so to speak.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty mad. And then I never believed in myself for my whole first half of what I call the first phase of Garbage.
2 Chainz was the guy who debated Nancy Grace about weed. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yeah.
Weed is gonna kill you.
He outlasted her.
Yeah, that didn't work. I mean, it's hilarious now when you see how many states have legalized it. In full disclosure, Ron and I smoked marijuana with young Jamie before this podcast,
Yes, we
as
did.
I do so many others. It's finally the stigma slowly being removed.
Slowly.
Dude, I was a drug addict in the 90s when I first started smoking weed. I guess it was not even the 90s. It was like, when was it? Maybe 98 or 99, somewhere around then. That's when I started smoking weed. And you were a drug addict. You're a marijuana user? What's wrong with you, man? Get your shit together. I'm like, man, you guys don't get it. There's 2 Chainz. There he is. Nancy Grace.
They put the stuff on the screen when it was going on.
How many marijuanas does it take to overdose? Jamie, send me that. That is a fucking amazing quote. Did she really say that?
No. As a Twitter user, they put it's like people were
Oh.
tweeting whatever hashtag pot to blame.
Oh my God!
And
Who
so
are
they
that
just were
Twitter?
putting
Oh,
the
that
stuff
Twitter
on there.
user. Oh, Styler.
Tyler 2015. It says.
Oh, Tyler 2015. Dude, that was 2015 the day of the tweet. It must be.
No, that's probably just in his account.
But
I
I
don't know when it happened.
It's a weird tweet
Oh.
though, because there's a space in there, so that don't.
Yeah.
That,
Well,
Yeah, I think
Whatever they used to put up
2015. Well, whether
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whoever that is, congratulations. Made me laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's why I love.
She was a ridiculous lady. She obviously wasn't that healthy. She wasn't like a very fit, health conscious person. She's
No.
worrying about weed.
She's just a crazy person. She was like Paula Deen, but she couldn't cook food.
It's marijuana. It's going to kill you, Ron Funches.
People still like that.
There's a lot of people like that in the middle of the country.
In the middle of the country, sometimes it's still like, there's a lot of stigma depend racially,
Yeah.
Depends. They get the soccer weed moms and everybody's like, oh, that's cool. And then you still get that. Like I did a podcast the other day and the first comments were like, either you're too stoned, you're not doing it. I was like, no, I just did a bad job, Like I could have just done a bad job. It didn't have anything to do with me being stoned.
Yeah, like they know that if you were sober, the podcast would have been way better.
Yeah.
If you were sober, man, you wouldn't have been so weird. It's true. It's all true. I used to have to go to this place, the Inglewood Wellness Center. So it was kind of in a hood area, a little bit sketchy. And then while we were going there, like within a year or two later, the guy who ran it got shot and robbed there. It's like that's how dangerous weed was, because you had to do it all in cash. They wouldn't let banks use checks. They wouldn't accept checks and credit cards. So everything was weird. Even though it was medical and it was legal, you had to get it through nefarious ways. And then slowly but surely, the stigma started to erase.
Yeah, now you can just go to a store on Melrose.
Yes,
Oh,
like
it's the best.
adults. Like, what? How do you feel? You're a wise man. How do you feel? I shouldn't have qualified that. But I felt like I'm setting you up. What do you think about making all drugs legal? Do you think that would ever happen? And given what we know about prohibition, sounds like an interview. Given what we know about prohibition, like how bad it was for alcohol and how it popped up the organized crime, and I mean, it caused a lot of problems. Do you think it would be a wise thing to make all drugs legal?
That's a tough question for me. I think that's. I think you have to start. I guess that's really trying to give people a lot of credit about their intelligence and their decision making, right? And that's what you're trying to lead towards. That the individual is very intelligent and they're going to make their decision no matter what. And that by putting these stigma to it, just like prostitution, things like that, you're just adding extra jail time, extra obstacles, extra life-threatening situations.
And you're also penalizing people for their own life choices instead of propping up organized crime, or as well as propping up organized crime.
But if you've seen the effects of drug addiction, which I've had on occasion, it's hard to go like, yeah, this should be okay, you know?
I 100% agree.
So
yeah, it's not that clean.
No, I don't, and that's why. Yeah, that would be my answers. I don't think it's that clean. I think that it is a case by case basis. Well, do I think marijuana should be legal? Absolutely. Do I think that you should necessarily legalize heroin? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But I think that I think there's a real problem with infantilizing adults. The real problem is, like, if you are 25 years old or older and you decide you want to try cocaine, why can they say you can't do that? Why? Says who? Why is that why if you catch me with that, can you put me in a jail? It grows from the ground. It's a plant. They take that plant, they process it, they turn it into cocaine. They still use it legally for lidocaine and medical grade cocaine. They still use it for the flavor of Coca-Cola. They still use the leaves. They still use the plant. Like, who says, I don't even do coke, but who the fuck do you think is making money selling coke? Because there's a lot of coke. It's one thing that's completely
That's
100%
why Miami
illegal.
exists.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
There's no other industry in Miami, and there's so much money there.
Did you see Cocaine Cowboys?
No.
Oh, dude. Billy Corbin, the guy who directed it, was on the podcast yesterday. He's fantastic, and he's got this new documentary called Screwball. It's about Alex Hernandez and steroids and baseball and all this crazy shit.
Rodriguez.
Oh, right, Rodriguez. Who's Alex Hernandez? Is it a different one? A-Rod. How did I say Hernandez?
Was he the guy? No, that's Aaron.
That's
I'm
the
thinking
weed.
of the
It's
guy
the weed.
from the New England Patriots.
It's goddamn weed. Fuck my head up. That is the guy from the Patriots.
No,
with the
I think
murder.
that's Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, okay. That's where I fucked it up. My apologies, Alex. Alex Rodriguez. And anyway, this guy made a documentary called Cocaine Cowboys, and it's all about how crazy during the big cocaine days Miami was, and how one year the entire graduating class of the Sheriff's Academy, the Police Academy, whatever it was, they either were murdered or they were arrested for corruption. Everyone, the entire class. Like the entire graduating year, it was Wild West chaos, and there was all these pilots bringing in millions of dollars worth of coke, and they had bags of money buried in their backyard. It's fucking crazy.
That's interesting.
It's great, man. It's great. It's a 2-part series. Or there's 2 parts to it too.
Do you ever hear
Two
about the
versions
Black
of it.
Mafia family? You ever watch any documentaries about them?
No.
That makes me always interested.
What did they do?
They were a cocaine outlet in the early 2000s out of Atlanta, and they at one point they were running like most of the southeast, headed by this dude named Big Meech, and then they decided like we should legalize and get into rap. But they had never done anything like that before, and they were very blatant about it. So all of a sudden, these people who came out of nowhere were just all on like every magazine. They have this thing where they're interviewing police officers, and they had this big billboard when you would land at Atlanta that would just say BMF, we own the world, and they were just out there, and they would throw these big parties with tigers and stuff. And they only had one recording artist, so it was just like they weren't good at pretending not to be drug dealers.
Wow.
So it's very interesting.